I didn't flinch when he tapped his glass. Not because I didn't want to, but because I'd practiced not reacting to that sound since I was old enough to know what followed it. A quiet clink. Then the performance. My father stood at the end of the head table, his jacket unbuttoned, shirt a little damp where his tie used to be. The sleeves had creased at the elbows from leaning too hard into conversations he insisted on finishing. Behind him, the band paused mid-set, glasses stilled, conversations quieted, all of them looking up now, at the man with the microphone. "Let's talk about Lily," he said, smiling. "My daughter, our bride." There was a pause. It looked like love. It felt like loading. She's always had a strong sense of right and wrong, mostly wrong if you ask her brother. Laughter, soft, familiar, and forgiveness? Well, let's just say Lily keeps records better than the IRS. Right, honey? He glanced at me like I was part of the joke. I wasn't. There was a version of this that could have been awkward but well-meaning. This wasn't that. This was a prepared blow dressed in charm. She's a firecracker, always overreacting but always on time. And that's something. The man next to him chuckled, the kind of man who calls daughters high-strung when they don't smile on command. She once told me I was emotionally unavailable. Isn't that what they say now? He turned toward the crowd, grinning. Therapy language. I told her, sweetie, I'm emotionally efficient. More laughter. To my left, Mark adjusted his silverware. To my right, my aunt leaned in and whispered, "He's just nervous." I didn't answer. I've always said, if you want to know how Lily feels about something, wait 5 seconds and she'll tell you. Twice. More laughter, louder now. I looked down at my hands. My ring caught the candlelight and flared for a moment. She's stubborn, she's smart, she's Lily. He raised his glass. To my daughter. May her husband have the patience of a saint. Chairs shifted, glasses lifted, smiles formed. I smiled too, small, precise. I stood and gave the toast I had written. It was short. I thanked our guests. I mentioned my mother's flowers and Mark's grandparents' long marriage. I left my father's name out entirely. He didn't notice. By the time dessert was served, he was already holding court at the bar. My mother had disappeared. She always did after he spoke too long. My brother was laughing with the groomsmen, repeating lines from the speech. Emotionally efficient, right? I didn't correct him. 3 days later, my bank called. I had just gotten home. The refrigerator door was open. The eggs were still in the bag. My phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer. "Miss Hudson." Her voice was steady but too soft for a routine call. "We noticed something unusual with your profile. Your credit score dropped. Significantly. Did you apply for 6 new credit cards recently?" I laughed, confused. "No, I didn't apply for any." Silence. She checked something on her end. They were all opened in the last 14 months, all maxed, all listed at the same address, Arlington, Texas. My childhood home. The carton of eggs slipped from the bag and hit the floor. One cracked. I didn't bend to pick it up. "Miss Hudson." "I'm here," she continued gently. "The accounts list you as the primary holder, but the email addresses and phone numbers are different from what we have on file. We believe your identity may have been compromised." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. She went on. There were 6 credit lines, 3 from national banks, 2 store cards, and 1 open business account, $47,000 in total debt. I asked her to email me the statements. I wrote down every number. Then I thanked her, calmly. The egg on the floor had started to spread. I watched the yolk slip across the tile like something alive. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled my credit report. I knew what to look for. My background in healthcare required regular checks, licensing, security protocols. I kept everything locked down, passwords long, 2-factor authentication, but I hadn't changed the address on some of the older accounts, the ones I opened in college. And that was all they'd needed. Each new account used a slight variation of my name: L. Hudson, Lillian Hudson. One used just initials, all routed to Arlington, my parents' house. At 1:12 a.m., I called the number listed for one of the store cards. A man with a clipped tone confirmed the most recent charge, $1,378 for home furnishings, purchased 3 weeks ago. Delivery address? I asked. He read it. Street, house number, zip code. I knew it by heart. By morning, I had a folder, printed statements, flagged entries, timelines. By noon, I had driven the 3 hours to Arlington. I didn't call ahead. My father answered the door in socks and a polo shirt, the kind he wore to church and HOA meetings. "Well," he said, "if it isn't Mrs. Hudson." He stepped aside to let me in. I walked past him. The house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. My mother was at the dining table reading something on her iPad. She looked up, startled. "Lily." She said it like a question. I didn't sit. I opened the folder and placed it on the table. My brother walked in from the kitchen, holding a bowl of cereal. He stopped when he saw me, looked at the folder, then back at my face. "You came about the cards," he said, just like that. I didn't speak. He set the bowl down. "Look, I meant to pay them off. It wasn't supposed to get that bad." "You used my name." He shrugged. "You weren't using it." My mother stood. "Josh," she said softly. "It wasn't just me," he added. "Mom helped set up the store card. She said it would help your credit, show activity." I turned to her. Her eyes dropped. She didn't deny it. I looked at my father last. He had sat down now, arms crossed, watching. "You knew?" He shrugged. "You're married now. Your husband can help." That was when my knees almost gave out. It wasn't just the theft. It was the way they spoke about it, like it was paperwork, like I was the problem for bringing it up. I took a breath. Let it settle. "I'm filing a police report," I said. My father leaned back. "If you do this, forget you have a family." There it was. Not a threat, a rule. I picked up the folder, walked to the door, paused. No one followed. I drove until the gas light blinked. Then I drove another 10 miles. I didn't listen to music. I didn't call Mark. I didn't cry. I stopped at a rest station just past Waco, bought a coffee I didn't want, and sat in the car with the door open, watching the wind push trash across the asphalt. My hands weren't shaking. My face felt hot. That was all. I thought about the way Josh had looked at me, not guilty, not ashamed, just caught, and how quickly my mother had looked away. But it was my father's voice I kept hearing. "You're married now, your husband can help." That sentence had weight, not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. The next morning, I filed the report. I walked into the station wearing scrubs, my badge still clipped to my collar. The officer behind the desk looked at me like I was lost. "Fraud?" he repeated. "Yes." I handed him the folder. He flipped through it. Slowly, his eyes moved from the flagged charges to my driver's license. $47,000, he said. "In your name?" "Yes." "Who did it?" I didn't hesitate. "My brother, Josh Hudson. He lives at 13,207 Langley in Arlington. That's my parents' home. That's where the statements were sent." He blinked. I didn't move. "Do you want to press charges?" The question didn't scare me. It clarified everything. "Yes," I said. "I do." He called someone in. Another officer took my full statement. I signed it. I provided documents, printouts, addresses. No one asked why I hadn't come sooner. No one asked why I wasn't crying. The filing took 90 minutes. By the time I left, the sun was already leaning west. I stopped at the pharmacy on my way home and picked up mouthwash and laundry detergent. At the self-checkout, my card went through. It felt like something I'd earned. The phone call came 2 days later. Unknown number. I answered anyway. My father's voice, flat. "Detective Sturgis showed up today, with paperwork." Silence. Then, "I told you what would happen." "You did." Are you proud of this? No. I paused. But I'm not embarrassed by it either. You made your family into criminals. They made that choice without me. He hung up. I let the line go dead. That night, Mark cooked dinner, pasta and garlic bread. I ate half, then pushed the plate away. He didn't ask questions. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't say much at all. Instead, he opened his laptop and searched for a credit lawyer. Found 2. Sent me the links. I clicked both. The first meeting was virtual. A woman named Cassandra. Quiet voice, short sentences. She asked good questions, took notes, didn't promise too much. At the end of the call, she looked at me carefully and said, "I'm sorry this happened, but you're doing exactly what you should." I nodded. I stopped speaking to my parents. No phone calls, no emails. I changed the locks on our apartment and added a freeze to every credit agency. New passwords, new monitoring. Josh tried calling once. I let it go to voicemail. "Look, I messed up," he said, "but we're family. You don't turn on your own." I deleted the message. My mother sent a card in the mail, blank inside except for one sentence written in her neat, careful hand. "We miss you. Please don't destroy what we built." What we built. I tore it in half and placed the pieces in the shredder. The preliminary hearing came 6 weeks later. The courtroom was beige and cold, the kind of place that turns memory into documentation. I sat on the left side of the aisle, alone. Josh arrived with a public defender. Hair combed, wearing the same gray blazer he used to wear for holidays. My father walked in behind him. My mother followed. They didn't look at me. When the judge entered, everyone stood. When we sat, the air felt heavier. Josh pled. Not guilty. The prosecutor requested a trial date. Then came the part I hadn't known to expect. Character statements. My father rose. He adjusted his tie, looked around the room like it belonged to him. "My son made a mistake," he said, "but my daughter is vindictive. Always has been. She escalates. She dramatizes. She can't let things go." The judge didn't react. He waited until the silence settled, then asked, "Did you ever offer to repay your daughter for the debt she incurred?" My father looked confused, then defensive. "No." The judge nodded. "Accountability is not cruelty," he said. "It is justice." The trial was set for 3 months later. Outside the courthouse, the air was thick with August heat. My blouse clung to my back. I walked past them without stopping. Josh didn't look up. My father muttered something I couldn't hear. My mother wore sunglasses. She didn't move. I returned to work that Monday. Patients still needed care. Mrs. Riley still asked for extra ginger ale. Mr. Corey still argued about his blood pressure meds. The rhythm of other people's lives pulled me back into my own. I didn't tell my co-workers. But I started therapy. First session, intake, background, family structure, military history. Second session, silence. I didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. The therapist didn't rush. Eventually I said, "I think they really believe they didn't do anything wrong." She said, "That doesn't mean they didn't." By October, the first restitution payment came through, $379, court-ordered, garnished from Josh's wages. I deposited it and didn't spend it. Not because of the amount, but because it meant I wasn't alone with the truth anymore. One line on a bank statement, one quiet sentence. You were right. I didn't need an apology. I needed that. Mark and I didn't talk much about the trial. He supported me, quietly. He cooked, he drove, he filed the paperwork I couldn't look at. But one night, while brushing his teeth, he paused and said, "I never liked the way your dad looked at you, like he was waiting for you to mess up." I nodded. "He doesn't get to do that anymore," I said. The trial was delayed twice. Scheduling, subpoenas, paperwork. The prosecutor emailed updates every 2 weeks. I read them during lunch breaks. My credit score stayed low. My account stayed secure. I learned how to wait. I learned how to protect without defending. I stopped checking their Facebook pages. I stopped replaying the toast in my head. I started sleeping through the night. I started laughing again, not performative, not polite, quiet, real laughter, at a joke from a coworker, at a line in a book. The world didn't tilt back into place, but it stopped spinning. The trial began on a Wednesday. Cold morning, gray sky, no rain, just threat. I parked in the city lot, locked the doors, and walked without looking up. The courthouse steps were slick with frost, though it hadn't snowed. A man in a yellow vest sprinkled salt along the handrail. He nodded as I passed. I nodded back. Inside, security was brisk. The guards recognized me from the hearing months earlier. They didn't smile. I didn't expect them to. Courtroom 2B. Same layout, same chairs, different weight. Josh was already there. Same blazer, cheeks thinner. His public defender was younger than before, or maybe just newer to this kind of case. My father sat directly behind him. My mother sat next to him, her coat folded neatly in her lap. None of them turned around. I took my seat at the front on the left. The prosecutor leaned toward me, voice low. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say." "I'm ready," I said. He nodded. "They may try to frame this as a misunderstanding. Don't engage. Let the evidence carry it." I didn't answer. He was right. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Everyone sat. Jury selection had been waived. It was a bench trial. Faster, quieter, harder to manipulate. I preferred it that way. The opening arguments were brief. The prosecution cited timelines, signatures, statement history. No emotion, just facts. The defense called it a family dispute, said my brother had acted with intent to repay, that no crime had been committed, just confusion, miscommunication, assumptions. I kept my hands folded in my lap. Then they called me. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore. The prosecutor led. Calm, precise. "State your name for the record." Lily Hudson. Occupation? Physician assistant, level 2 trauma certification, employed at Franklin Medical Austin. "Do you recognize these statements?" He handed me a binder, tabbed, organized. "I do." "Whose name appears as the account holder?" "Mine." "And the address listed?" "My parents', in Arlington. I haven't lived there in over 8 years." He nodded. "When did you become aware of the accounts?" 3 days after my wedding. The bank contacted me. "Did you authorize your brother to open or use any credit accounts in your name?" "No." "Did you ever receive any of the funds or goods purchased through those accounts?" "No." "Did your family offer to repay the balances?" "No." Silence. He paused. "Did you feel safe confronting them?" "No." He didn't ask why. That wasn't necessary. "Thank you, Ms. Hudson." He turned. "No further questions." The defense approached. Josh wouldn't look at me. His lawyer asked the expected questions. "Do you believe your brother intended to harm you?" "I believe he didn't care if he did." "You're under oath." "I know." "Isn't it true you had access to significant financial resources at the time?" "No, my credit was frozen." My score had dropped over 200 points. "Were you ever denied a loan or a mortgage because of this?" "Yes." He adjusted his tie. "Do you consider yourself close with your family?" "I used to." No further questions. I was dismissed. I returned to my seat. My heart was steady. Josh took the stand. He looked tired, wore an expression like regret, but I'd seen him lie before. He called it a mistake, a lapse in judgment, said he panicked during the pandemic, couldn't make rent, said he only meant to use it for a month or two until things leveled out. "But the purchases continued for over a year," the prosecutor said. Josh nodded. "It got away from me." "And when your sister confronted you?" "I admitted it. I said I was sorry." "She recorded no such apology." He shifted. "She was already mad. There was no point." "What were you spending on?" "Mostly bills, household stuff." "Such as?" "Groceries, furniture, gas." "And the charges at Astoria Jewelers?" He paused. That was for Mom. There it was. The prosecutor didn't react. And the rental on the truck? He hesitated again. That was for moving some things. Were they your things? Silence. No. Whose? My dad's. Did you or your parents offer to return the items? No. The judge took notes. I watched his hand, steady and deliberate. The prosecutor turned one final page. Mr. Hudson, do you believe what you did was wrong? Josh looked at the table. I guess. The prosecutor leaned in. That's not the question. Josh's voice dropped. Yes. My father testified next. He called it a misunderstanding, said the family had always shared resources, said I hadn't communicated clearly, that I'd never said no, not directly, that I was being vindictive. The prosecutor asked him to clarify. You believe your daughter's identity was not stolen? I believe she's overreacting. The judge interrupted. Mr. Hudson, this is not about temperament, it's about legality. My father closed his mouth. The prosecutor handed him a document. Is this your signature? No. And yet it appears on a co-signed application. My father said nothing. Did you benefit from the credit extended to your daughter? I didn't ask for it. But you used it. No. The delivery receipts say otherwise. He didn't respond. Did you at any point advise your son to stop using her name? No. Did you at any point offer to repay her? No. Thank you. He stepped down. My mother wasn't called. Closing arguments came the next morning. The prosecution summarized: theft of identity, deliberate misuse, clear pattern of concealment, 0 attempts at restitution until legal action forced it. The defense argued that family dynamics were messy, that repayment was always intended, that this was civil, not criminal. The judge didn't respond. He called a recess, said he would return with a decision by afternoon. I waited outside, near the benches. Didn't speak. Didn't eat. I watched a squirrel hop across the parking lot, tail twitching with each bounce. At 1:17 p.m., we were called back. The courtroom was silent. The judge read from a prepared statement. He acknowledged the evidence, the timelines, the testimony. He spoke directly to Josh. You betrayed a legal trust, not just a familial one. To my father, your silence was complicity. He declared a verdict of guilty, sentenced to include restitution, credit repair oversight, and 12 months of supervised probation. The courtroom exhaled. Josh didn't cry. My father didn't move. My mother stood up and walked out before the judge finished speaking. The first restitution check arrived 2 weeks later, $379, delivered in a plain envelope, no note. I deposited it during my lunch break. The teller smiled. Back again? I nodded. She handed me the receipt. One payment closer. I folded it carefully and placed it in the folder at home. I didn't spend it. It wasn't about money, it was about math. Each deposit was proof, not of damage. Of recovery. I kept working. Paid bills, rebuilt. My credit inched forward, not fast, but steady. I started planning again. A trip, a course, a certification I'd put off for too long. I found an old photo in a drawer, me in uniform standing with my team. I framed it, hung it in the hallway, not because of the past, but because of the clarity it gave me. Mark and I didn't talk much about the trial after that, but one evening, as we were watching a movie, he reached over and touched my wrist. You did it, he said. I looked at him. No, I mean it. You went through hell and didn't let it make you small. I shook my head. It wasn't about being big, I said. It was about being exact. 8 months passed. The payments kept coming. Always on time. Always the same amount. I never cashed a single one. They sat in their own account. A ledger of harm acknowledged, not by words, but by deposit. I didn't tell anyone how I used that money. Not the bank. Not Mark. Not even the therapist. Some things don't need witnesses. I didn't go back to Arlington. Didn't return calls. I changed my number in December, not because they were calling, but because I didn't want them to have access anymore. Even silence was a form of access. By spring, I'd moved into a new unit on the other side of the city. Quieter, higher up. Windows on both sides, east and west. I liked watching the sun rise over the hospital roof and set behind the power lines. I replaced every towel, every plate, every fork. Nothing came with me from the old apartment but clothes and books. I didn't tell my family I moved. There was nothing left to notify. Then, one Saturday afternoon in April, I saw him. It was at the grocery store on Barton Springs. I was reaching for a jar of chickpeas when someone stepped into my peripheral vision. Lily. I turned. He was wearing khakis and a long-sleeved shirt tucked in too tightly. His belt buckle was off-center. He hadn't shaved. "Hi, Dad." He didn't smile. "You look different." "I am." He nodded once, like he was waiting for me to say more. I didn't. He looked down the aisle. No one nearby. Then back at me. "You got what you wanted," he said. I didn't answer right away. I adjusted the basket on my arm. Then, "No, I got what was fair." He blinked, said nothing. "You always made it about control," I said quietly. "This time, you didn't have it." He flinched just slightly. "I didn't steal anything." "No," I said. "You just stood next to the person who did." He rubbed the back of his neck, the way he used to when he couldn't find the right lie. "I never meant to. You meant to protect him, and you did. I was trying to hold the family together. You held it against me." That was when he looked up, really looked, eyes rimmed red, face pale. He looked old. "We didn't think you'd go through with it," he said. "We thought you'd come to your senses." "That was the problem," I replied. "You thought I'd fold. Again." He opened his mouth, closed it. Then, after a beat, "Your mother asks about you." I didn't move. "She hasn't called. She doesn't know what to say. There's nothing left to say." He nodded. It wasn't agreement, just acknowledgement. "Can I?" He paused. "Is there a way to fix this?" I looked at him. The man who had walked me to the bus on my first day of school. The man who built me a bike ramp out of scrap wood. The man who told the worst stories at the worst times. Who shrugged when his son used my name like a spare key. I thought about all the times he could have stopped it. The email addresses, the mail, the purchases. The way he folded his arms when I confronted them. The way he chose silence, again and again when I was asking for air. "No," I said. He looked like he expected that answer, but something in him still sagged under the weight of it. I stepped past him. "Goodbye." He didn't follow. I didn't turn around. That night, I told Mark. Not the whole conversation, just that I saw him. "Are you okay?" he asked. I poured water into a glass. "Yes." "You sure?" "Yes." He watched me, then nodded. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. 2 weeks later, a package arrived. No return address, plain brown wrapping. My name printed neatly. Inside, a manila envelope. Inside that, documents, copies of account closures, confirmations from creditors, statements showing zero balances, a note, handwritten. "This is what I should have done a year ago. I'm sorry. Josh." No apology from my parents. Just Josh. Just facts. No request for contact. No phone number. I sat with it for a long time, then slid the papers into the folder with the others, closed the drawer, left the envelope on the table. I didn't call him. By early summer, the court released a notice. Restitution fulfilled, case closed. I saved the letter, shredded the duplicates, stood at the kitchen counter with my palm resting flat on the document, breathing in the quiet. Closure isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with explanation or applause. It arrives in the form of stillness. No calls, no guilt, no waiting. It's the absence of threat. It's the return of breath. I stopped going to therapy, not because I was finished, because I'd finally heard myself think. The rest would come in time. Work stayed steady. I picked up a weekend shift, volunteered for a clinical rotation across town, not because I needed distraction, but because I didn't. Mark and I still lived in quiet companionship, no drama, no apologies for silence. He never asked what I needed. He watched. He noticed. He filled in spaces where I allowed them. Once, as we were brushing our teeth side by side, he said, "You've stopped checking the mailbox like it's bad news." I rinsed my mouth. I know. He didn't ask why. In August, the bank called again, a different representative, a new voice, same tone. "Ms. Hudson, I just wanted to say thank you." For what? For making every payment on time, for staying with us. For being you. I laughed gently. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you know." After the call, I sat on the couch and looked out the window. A plane was moving across the sky, low and slow, its lights blinking in rhythm. There was a time I would have followed it with longing. Now I just watched. I haven't spoken to my mother. She never reached out, never sent another card. But the silence no longer feels like punishment. It feels like boundary. She said I was destroying what we built. She was wrong. What we built was never real. What I built now is a space without theft, without performance, without leaning on a daughter who never asked for that weight. I don't miss them. I miss who I used to pretend they were, but even that is fading. The more time passes, the more room I have. For air, for thought, for what's next. Sometimes people ask about my family. I say I have one. I just don't spend holidays with them. No one pushes. The way I say it makes them step back gently, the way you would from a shelf labeled fragile, but not yours. I don't tell them about the toast. I don't tell them about the jar of chickpeas or the courtroom or the envelope on the table. I tell them I had to make a decision. And I did. This story didn't end with justice. It ended with distance. That's the part people forget. Sometimes healing doesn't look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like locking the door behind you and sleeping soundly for the first time in years. Sometimes it looks like choosing who gets access, who doesn't, not out of vengeance, out of self-respect. I still check my credit report every month. Out of habit, not fear. It's clean now. But I do it anyway. Not because I expect them to return, but because I remember what it felt like to not be believed, to carry silence like shame. I won't go back to that. Mark once asked, "Would you do it again?" We were folding laundry, something soft on in the background. I stopped folding a towel and looked at him. "Yes," I said. "Sooner." He nodded. Then, "You know you didn't deserve any of it." "I know." That was all. When the final payment cleared, I made a single purchase from that account. Not furniture, not something big, a lockbox, steel, fireproof. Inside it, I placed the court closure letter, one restitution receipt, my own written timeline, a photo of me at the bank, smiling, alone, and the passbook my grandmother once gave me, now sealed in plastic. I don't plan to open it again, but I like knowing it's there. Proof, record, truth that doesn't fade. I still get calls from fraud protection services offering me alerts, tools, credit freezes. I say thank you, but I've already got everything I need, because now I understand something I didn't before. Strength isn't staying silent while others wound you. It's refusing to carry what was never yours. If this story echoed something in you, a moment of betrayal, a quiet truth, a final boundary, you're not alone. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to wait for their apology. Let me know what stayed with you. And if you'd like to read more stories like this, I'll be here, steady, quiet, and clear.